What if I told you that an African nation made up in a comic book more than 50 years ago holds more truth about freedom, power, and self determination than half of the history books we grew up with? What if I told you Wakanda isn't just Marvel magic, it's a mirror, not of where we are, but of where we could be if our history wasn't stolen from us? Today, we're talking about Wakanda, the dream, the blueprint, and what it means for African Americans right now. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of We Got Time Today, the podcast where I remind you to stay petty, stay black, and stay brilliant. I'm your host, Will on the mic, and you already know the vibes. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single episode of We Got Time Today. So today we are not just talking about a superhero, we're talking about a movement. When Black Panther dropped in 2018, it wasn't just another Marvel movie. No, it was a cultural earthquake. People were showing up to theaters in dashikis, head wraps, African and prints. Entire families rolled deep like it was Sunday service and the cookout rolled into one. But here's the thing. Wakanda isn't just about costumes or special effects. It was about representation. It was about possibilities. It is about asking what our world would look like if Black people had never been colonized, enslaved, or oppressed. That's the conversation for today. Why Wakanda Matters, why the Black Panther films was more than just entertainment, and how this fictional place speaks directly to what African Americans are facing today. Let's take it back to 1966. America's in turmoil. Civil rights marches, voting rights struggles, Malcolm X is gone, Martin Luther King Jr. is still fighting, and then Marvel Comics introduces Wakanda. Now, let's pause here for a second, because in the 1960s, when Africa was usually portrayed in movies as primitive or backwoods, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby said no. We're going to create a nation that was untouched by colonization, strong, independent, rich in culture, and rich in resources. And not just surviving, but thriving. Now, the key to Wakanda's success was vibranium. Now, this metal wasn't just a plot device, it was a metaphor. So, let's think about Africa today. Right? Africa has diamonds, gold, oil, cobalt, uranium. This continent is literally sitting on wealth that the entire world needs. But history tells us colonization and exploitation robbed African nations of that power. But Wakanda said, what if these resources stayed in Black hands? What if we never had to share with our colonizers? That's radical. That's Afrofuturism. Now let's fast forward to 2018. Ryan Coogler directs Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman becomes King T'Challa. Angela Bassett, Lupita, Dana, Michael B. Jordan, an all-star lineup. The movie grosses $1.3 billion worldwide. But the money wasn't the story. The movement was the story. Theaters turned into community spaces. Kids saw heroes who looked like them. Not sidekicks, not victims, but kings, queens, warriors, scientists. And for once, Black people were centered in the future and not erased from it. And the film gave us one of the greatest cultural debates, T'Challa versus Killmonger. T'Challa was the protector, cautious, leading with diplomacy. Killmonger, the revolutionary, raised in Oakland, ready to burn the system down and arm oppressed people across the globe. T'Challa is the king, who believes in protecting Wakanda first. He's measured, diplomatic, always thinking long term. He doesn't want to expose Wakanda's power to the world because he knows the dangers. Again, he's cautious, he's protective. Killmonger, on the other hand, is the product of America. A Black man from Oakland who grew up without Wakanda's privilege. His father was murdered, he was left abandoned, and that trauma shaped him. He doesn't want just liberation for Wakanda, he wants liberation for all oppressed Black people across the globe. And he's willing to use Wakanda's weapons and resources to burn the system down if that's what it takes. Now, tell me that doesn't sound familiar. That's Martin Luther King and Malcolm X all together again. MLK Obviously, it's T'Challa, right? Believed in diplomacy, negotiation, integration. He wanted to protect his people while still moving towards equality within the system. His message was about patience, peace, and appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. Now, Malcolm X is like Killmonger, said, forget patience, freedom by any means necessary. He spoke directly to the anger, the frustration, the centuries of exploitation. He believed self defense was not violence, but survival. And here's the brilliance of Black Panther: it didn't villainize either side. It showed both perspectives with empathy because, truthfully, both visions have value. And that's why this Killmonger line in particular hit so hard. Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from ships because they knew death was better than bondage. That wasn't just another Marvel script. That was ancestral truth. That was every enslaved African who resist, every revolutionary who refused chains. And if we're being real, the Black diaspora has always wrestled with those two paths. Do we integrate? Do we work within the system? Or do we reject it, fight it, and build our own? That tension is alive today, just like it was in the 60s. Now, here's why Wakanda hits so deep. Because for African Americans, it represents the opposite of what we've experienced. Here's a reality we had to face: slavery. Our names, our languages, our cultures stripped away. Segregation and Jim Crow locked us out of schools, jobs, and neighborhoods. Mass incarcerations, families broken apart, cycles of poverty reinforced, economic oppression, redlining, wage gaps, and generational poverty. Now, flip the script in Wakanda. Black people govern themselves without interference. They own their own resources outright. Nobody is discovering or stealing their wealth. Their culture is alive, celebrated, even dominant. They don't beg for a seat at the table, they build the damn table. See the difference? Wakanda isn't just fantasy, it's a counter narrative. It says blackness is enough, blackness is powerful, blackness has always been the future. And that's why people wept in the theaters. That's why it mattered so much. So, how do we take this fictional nation and apply it to the real world? Well, Wakanda actually gives us a blueprint. It gives us 5 things. First one, it's self reliance. If you control your resources, you control your destiny. That's why Black owned businesses, banks, and investments matter. 2, education and innovation. In Wakanda, Suri wasn't an exception, she was the standard. Imagine if every Black child had full access to science labs, coding programs, and schools that believed in their brilliance. 3, diaspora unity. Diaspora unity. That Killmonger versus T'Challa tension, that the African versus African American disconnect in real life. Wakanda shows what happens when the diaspora unites instead of divides. 4, cultural protection. Colonization always starts with erasing culture. Wakanda guards theirs fiercely. So should we, from music to language to hair. And then 5, strategic outreach. Wakanda is hidden for a reason, and that reason is protection. But T'Challa eventually chooses to share knowledge. That's the balance. Protect what's ours, but share on our own terms. And here's where it gets real. Because Wakanda isn't just fantasy. We've had real life Wakandas. So let's take Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example. In the early 1900s, it was one of the wealthiest Black communities in America. Banks, theaters, schools, businesses, Black ownership at every level. They built their own thriving economy in a world that told them they weren't allowed to. And what happened? In 1921, white mobs burned it to the ground. Airplanes dropped bombs, hundreds killed, thousands left homeless. Why? Because Black self-sufficiency threatened white supremacy. Now think about the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s and the 1930s. Harlem became the heartbeat of Black creativity: jazz, literature, art, politics. Harlem wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a cultural capital that shaped the globe. That was Wakanda energy. Or look at HBCUs. Historical Black colleges and universities have been creating Black doctors, lawyers, scientists, and leaders for generations. These institutes are living proof that when you invest in us, we produce brilliance. So we've had Wakanda moments. But the pattern is clear. Whenever we've built power, the system has tried to destroy it. Whether it's through violence, policy, or economics, white supremacy finds a way to undercut Black progress. Now, here's why Wakanda matters in 2025. Because we're still fighting those battles. Voter suppression laws designed to silence Black voices. These targeting Black bodies. Economic inequality, where the racial gap still looks like a canyon. Cultural erasure. Black culture being commodified and sold back to us without credit. Wakanda is a reminder that none of this is because we can't thrive. It's because systems don't want us to. But here's the hope. Wakanda is a blueprint. It tells us what's possible when we unite, when we protect our resources, and when we stop waiting for a system built against us to suddenly embrace us. So yeah, Wakanda may be fictional, but the message is real. It's a vision of what happens when Blackness is free, when it's unshackled, when it's unapologetic. And it's a reminder to us right now, we can't stop dreaming. We can't stop building. We can't stop protecting what's ours. Because Wakanda isn't just a place, it's a possibility. So yeah, Wakanda may be fictional. You can't hop on a plane or fly there. But the vision behind it, that's real. Wakanda asks, what could Black people be without the chains of oppression? And it answers, we'd be brilliant, we'd be powerful, and we'd be unstoppable. It's a call for us to dream bigger, to build harder, to protect what's ours. Because Wakanda isn't about escape, it's about possibility. So I want to hear from you. What does Wakanda mean to you? Is it just another Marvel story? Or is it a glimpse in the future we need to fight for? Drop your thoughts in the comments, tag me on social media, share this episode with someone who needs to think bigger about what's possible. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a single episode of We Got Time Today. And remember, stay petty, stay Black, and stay brilliant. Until next time, bye.